at the Austrian Institute of Technology, we have several areas of work, but our focus is on smart cities and resilient cities. I also head a program of resilient cities at the Technical University in Austria. Smart cities have always been thought of as technological projects, but we feel that social design is just as important to convince people to change behavior, improve their behavior in terms, and make it more green, and make the behavior more caring for the environment. So both things have to work together: good technology, high technology, appropriate technology, and on the other side, people. So there are so many things that we do, so in the short time that we have, I thought we would just concentrate on one aspect, which is mobility. And I will hand over to my colleague, Sylvia, from Austrian Institute of Technology, from the mobility department, and she will briefly explain the areas of our work. And after that, any questions? I realize it's quite late in the afternoon and some people are sleepy, so I promise some Austrian chocolate for everyone who asks a question.
I'm from Mobility Department from Austrian Institute of Technology, and yeah, in the next few minutes I would like to tell you a little bit what we are doing. So, as Dr. Biss was already introduced, we are an Austrian Research Institute, owned half by the Austrian government and half by the Federation of Austrian Industries. But we do not only research, but we do also projects with cities and governments. We have 5 different departments, which cover basically the whole, all the topics considering resilient or smart cities. So we deal with energy topics, mobility topics, safety and security, health and environment, and innovation systems. What are the challenges to become a smart city? A smart city is defined to offer a maximal quality of living to its inhabitants with a minimal consumption of resources by intelligently joining of infrastructure, so energy, mobility, transport, communication, and more, on different hierarchical levels. So this also shows that our 5 departments can cover the whole, all the topics concerning smart cities. Yeah, here's a short overview of what we offer. And yeah, I will jump right into mobility because that's the topic I would like to focus on today. So in our mobility department, we deal with the 3 main topics of transport infrastructure, mobility systems, and transport means. So with our research projects, we investigate to find new concepts, methods, tools, or technologies, all aiming at improving the mobility in cities. We have the business unit Dynamic Transportation Systems with 4 research groups. One is the basis, the data acquisition, which is very important for doing all concepts or master plans. Then we have the multimodal traffic flow modeling. Here we put a very big emphasis on the multimodal aspect because a lot of planners or companies only deal with single transport modes. So they plan a bus line or a metro line, but they do not investigate on the influence of the one mode on the other. So we really have a look at the whole concept, a holistic look at the whole system in order to have the optimum overall system. Then we have a group that deals with crowd dynamics, so all topics dealing with people movement. Here topics concerned are big events or airports, railway stations, metro stations. We have developed our own simulation tools to be able to simulate the movement of big crowds before an infrastructure is built. So we can plan before an event is or before an airport is built, how will people move there, and this way we can improve the or optimize the infrastructure. We see beforehand if there is any place in the planned infrastructure that needs improvement.
Maybe we should have asked us before building KI too.
And the 4th group deals with dynamic route planning. and transport logistics. So if there is any big fleet of garbage collecting or patient transports, we can optimize the routes that they have so that they really have the shortest route to do. And what we also do is fleet management. So if, for example, a city has a fleet of cars and would like to change it to electric fleet, we can make the whole plan when is the right time to change to which electric cars. So that this is then also the optimized fleet, the optimum composition of the electric fleet. So the goals and challenges to have sustainable mobility in a city, according to us, is to have high quality of life and safety also for pedestrian and cyclists. Because usually, also here in Kuala Lumpur, you can see cars are the dominating transport mode, so everybody is going by car. But if you would like to walk or to cycle, it's not very safe. And yeah, that's one reason.
She's being very diplomatic. It's dangerous to your life.
Yeah, so one solution is to make it better for pedestrians and cyclists, and to build a high-capacity public transport system that's inviting people, that's attractive for people to use it, and that is accessible for all passengers, so also for elder people or people with disabilities. So all the lot of stairs which we have here in Kuala Lumpur are not so easy, I think, for people with disabilities to use, for example, monorail. So how do we work? If we start a project with a city, we start with data collection and analysis. This is very crucial. We have to have information on how many people are going where, how many cars are used, where are the points of interest, where people go. So first we have a look if there is already data available in the city. If they are not available yet, we have several tools to find out the data, which I will explain a little bit in more detail later on. When we have the data, we start with modeling and simulation. So we try to find concepts to improve the transport model. And then we put this in a computer simulation and simulate with the data we have gained before, simulate this new concept and can optimize it in this way before it is built. So a lot of problems can be dealt with before some infrastructure measures are taken. And this can save also a lot of money. And then when the concept is chosen, which the city would like to implement, then we go to plan the action, to make the action plan and do recommendation on how to implement this transport model. If the city wants to, we have also industry partners that can help to implement the concept. So to make it a little bit more visible, I brought some reference projects and solutions which we have already used and implemented. So as I mentioned before, if there are not many data available on traffic flows and transport needs, we, for example, could use cell phone data. So we work with mobile phone companies, and they can give us the cell phone data, and on this basis we can find out the ways of people. So through the mobile phone, as you can see in the picture, we can find out where people go, and this gives already some very valuable information on how to do the planning of the transport system. Another possibility, if the mobile phone data is not available, would be our product Mobility Cloud. We have developed an app. So we ask several people to participate to use this app, and this app can track the ways of the people, and it also can do mode detection. So the app recognizes if the person is walking or cycling or going by tram or going by car. And this gives also very detailed information, which is very valuable. Another possibility is fleet. We have this system implemented in Vienna with a taxi company. So we get the taxi data, we know where the taxis go and how fast they move. So this gives us real-time information on the traffic status in the city. We know where there are congestions or have information about traffic queue length. Yes, one project which we did or is ongoing is a region in Western Austria. It's Smart City Rheintal. It's a region that has planned to be carbon neutral and have energy autonomy by 2050. And what we are doing in this project is to develop a multimodal transport model, including e-mobility. So they put a focus on e-mobility. And we are doing the planning and assess also future trends in mobility behavior to include this also in the planning of the system. Another project is Smart City Aspern. It's a smart city built from scratch close to Vienna, so before there has been nothing, and the whole city has been planned, and our contribution here is also the planning of the transport system, also with a focus on electromobility for the city. MixMe is a simulation we did in the city of Graz, also in Austria. They wanted to implement a shared space. And what we did was the simulation of people movement on this shared space. So cars and pedestrians and cyclists all use this place. Of course, cars have to go slower than they do in Kuala Lumpur and have to take care of it. But yeah, it works quite a lot, and shared spaces are very popular and built more and more in Europe. Have also projects in Asia. For example, we have participated in the planning of Sutong Ecological Business Park in China. This is a business park that has been planned also from scratch, and we did participate in the planning of the energy system and also the metro system of this business park. Yeah, another topic I want to bring here is biking. Vienna is quite known for its bike sharing system, which looks as you can see in the picture. What we do, we work close together with Bike Sharing Vienna. We do a study together with them how to bring the technology they use for many years to the future, because modernization has to be ongoing. And we work together with them to have always the newest technologies for the bike sharing system in Vienna. And for example, we have also developed a balancing bike sharing system, because if you have a bike sharing system, there is always the problem that you have different stations, and it can happen that in one station there is no bike available if you go there, or if you have a bike and want to bring it back to a certain station and it's full, then you cannot give back your bike. So this is a problem, and what we have developed is this balancing system, so that in every bike station there are bikes, but it's not always full.
Well, just to explain, the bikes are free to use. You don't pay for them. You take it with your mobile phone, so they know who has taken the bike. So it's not anonymous. If you don't return it, it's charged to your mobile phone bill. So everyone returns it. And it's free, and about 40% of the cost is brought in by advertisements and sponsors. And the rest, the city pays for it. But the city gets back a lot by the small amount of money that they pay for this, actually, relatively small. You reduce the car traffic so much that your pollution goes down, your emissions go down, CO2 goes down, noise level goes down, and it's more comfortable to move around. There are no traffic jams, So you have an increased quality of life, which attracts businesses, which attracts tourists. So Vienna is a UNESCO World Heritage Site with about 12 million, 13 million tourists a year. And so if you have been to Vienna or have met anyone who has been to Vienna, the first thing they say is it's so nice to move around, it's so safe. There are so many ways of moving around without a car, So 40% of Viennese don't own a car because it's so easy to move around. It's not because they can't afford a car. So 40% consciously do not own a car, which is only possible when you make that public transport, cycling, and pedestrian connectivity so attractive and so safe at all times of the day and night that people leave their car at home.
Another tool which we are using is Simulate. It's our simulation tool, which I mentioned before, which we use, if, for example, if a metro station is built. So before it is built, we have already the numbers of persons that will pass there, and then we can simulate if the infrastructure is planned in the right way, if the capacity is big enough, and if it would be working well before the infrastructure is built. That's the important thing, because if you build it and then recognize, okay, there is something gone wrong, then it's very expensive to change it afterwards. We use this simulation tool also for consulting for public transport operators when they buy new trams or trains or metros. We can take the design from the producer of the metro, for example, and do simulation of the passenger flows. So we see how fast can people enter this design and how fast can they get off. Because depending on the design of the car, it can be faster or slower. So we can do evaluation for the public transport operator if it's designed in a good way. Another application is Experience. It's basically a box, which you can see on the left side. We give in the planned data of, for example, a train station, what we did, for example, in the main train station in Vienna that has been reconstructed recently. And before the train station is built, we can evaluate the guiding system in the train station. So people go in there and see the infrastructure when they walk, and we can check if they find their way in the train station with if the signs are put in the right place, if they're big enough. Yeah, so that's what you can see here. If the movie starts, yeah. So this works quite well, and is also a tool which we can use before an infrastructure is built to optimize it before problems start. Yes, mobility behavior, it's a very important issue, because no matter what you do, you can have the best technologies, but if people do not accept it, do not use it, it's of no use. So it's very important to identify the various groups of users. What do they like to use? How can they be motivated? So first we identify the various groups, their behavior patterns, then we try to involve them, try to select the appropriate methods to reach them. And then we have several tools to inspire them, to motivate them to use the new system. So for example, if there's introduced a new bike sharing system, we have several tools to make it more probable that they will use it. And I have brought some examples. For example, game mechanisms are used. So it's often based on apps. For example, you can collect points if you use bike sharing, and then you can do, for example, a competition amongst your friends who has more points, or it can also be a financial reward for having collected a lot of points. So there are various systems which are very important and can give incentivation. Or for example, Virtual Pursuit was a project where it was a routing system combined with the game. So this also was kind of motivation. Yes. So here we are. That's basically what mobility department of AIT does.
We are now negotiating with some cities in Malaysia to improve connectivity, accessibility, mobility, because there is like an LRT line, yes, but when you get out of the station, you're stuck. You can't cross the road unless you want to risk your life. So. Or you have to take a taxi to cross the road. So if it's so unattractive and it's unsafe, then people will not switch from their car to the public transport. So everything has to be thought of. The gaps are there. So we are now discussing with 3 cities in Malaysia to improve this situation. In fact, it is an unacceptably high level of accidents in Malaysia for a developed, country aiming to be a developed country. That people, like motorcyclists, that 30 motorcyclists kill every day. 30. Pedestrians, quite a few accidents. because there is no maybe also consciousness and awareness of what. I'm surprised because every one of us is a pedestrian at some point in the day, but still somehow the whole traffic planning is only for the car, you know, and the car is a machine of the past, you know. It has no future, you know. So you look at all the more developed a country is, the more people are not using the car, you know. At least in Austria, I have seen our president taking the metro to work, or ministers cycling or walking to their ministries. So you shouldn't laugh about it. It should be common in Malaysia too. Except for the Dato Banda of KL, who does actually cycle to work. But otherwise, the situation has to be improved. So this is just one example of the areas that we work in. We work in, of course, in energy or green building or urban planning, because if you don't do the right planning, then the best technology can't help at the end of the day. So if you plan the whole, like it is often done in Malaysia, without any connectivity, then everybody has to have a car. That means every family, every apartment has to have maybe 3 or 4 cars. And then there's no end to it, you know. And then you build more roads and more highways and more overpass, and then they attract more traffic, and then it gets, you know, there's no end to it. And the fact is that in Europe, in Malaysia, they are actually demolishing these overhead built in the 60s and 70s, because they just are a huge problem and they don't solve any traffic problems. And here they want to build some more. So all these, I think that there is something that can be learned with international exchange and experience. And please, if you have any questions, please free to ask us now, and you get an Austrian chocolate. Otherwise, please send us an email. Any questions? Sorry.
Hi. I think one of the biggest challenges we have here in Malaysia is our weather. It's very hot at times and it rains very heavily at times, and it's one of the reasons why the car, it's a good and practical solution. You park underground and then you go to your home. You're protected from the elements. So are you all taking into consideration the weather conditions in designing? Because we can't go have our bikes or have pedestrian lanes when it's raining, it can't be used. So there should be alternative to using these solutions. Are you all taking that into consideration in?
So one solution for this would be, for example, not a normal bike sharing system, but an e-bike sharing system, because you sit on your bike and then fresh air comes to you. So this would be feasible.
The app that you developed for the weather?
Yeah, for example, we have also developed a weather app. So this app learns with time which mode you like to use, if you like to walk, if you like to bike. And then according to this, in the morning you get the recommendation, okay, today it will be raining at 10 o'clock. So today it's better not to use the bike because, yeah, it won't be that comfortable.
Okay, you mentioned that you are working with 3 cities in Malaysia. Just as a quick answer, obviously you know something about Malaysia. Does the urban planning in Malaysia facilitate green or efficient mobility for personnel in the country, or at least in the 3 cities that you are working on?
It's in Hall 5, in the European Pavilion, it's A022. And there are brochures. I mean, it's towards the end of the show now. But please pick up a brochure, or please photograph this so that you can contact us for any questions. We are doing projects with the involvement of government, private sector, and universities in Malaysia. So we will be also working very closely with 2 universities to build projects in the university land as showcase projects of how things should be done. At the same time, it's a capacity building for Malaysian university faculty members as well as senior students, so they can work on the project as well and learn. Because I met, the Prime Minister himself has, in my discussion with him, he said he's serious about the reduction of CO2. So I think one of the main areas is construction, and the second main area is mobility, where you can actually reduce the emissions dramatically. But that has to be done in a concerted effort. The government has to do its part, the private sector has to do its part, and the consciousness. Talking about consciousness, I think, it's important. Like in Europe, usually what other people do as well is we go to the schools and then, we talk to children about all these things, and then they go and terrorize their parents. So that's very effective motivation. Separate your garbage. Don't throw, don't throw this there and that. So this is a very important aspect. I think the next generation is on the right path.
Permanent base in Malaysia?
Yes, the company that you see, ARC22, is a Sindurian Berhad company, and we we are working with Vienna for the planning, but we also have a lot of local experts working on these, who so far have not been able to work on these areas because they have working in conventional jobs, but now they can work on these.